I and my wife have been married for 5 years. She's 3 months pregnant. My mom is a diabetic, has high blood pressure and has poor memory, so she has been staying with me and my wife for the past 2 years, as nursing homes are extremely expensive where I live. I usually do all the cooking at home, and we have one of those stovetop controllers that are password operated to ensure safety, in case my mom goes into the kitchen when I'm not at home. I also give my mom all her meds as she's prone to forgetting whether she's taken meds or not. As usual, I prepared breakfast for the 3 of us, kept my mom's meds on her bedside table and left for work. I got a call around 4 hours into my shoddy saying my mom was in the emergency ward because she passed out from only having her meds and not her food. I rushed to the hospital and found my wife sitting in the emergency ward. When I asked her why my mom didn't eat despite me having cooked, she said that she, my wife, had eaten all the food because she was extra hungry. On top of all this, my wife gave my mom her diabetic meds, thinking that she hadn't had them yet. I tried to keep my calm, but seeing my mom like that made my blood boil, and I told my wife to just go home. She tried talking to me, but I told her to not test me and that I don't know how much longer I'll stay calm. I made her leave the hospital. She's been texting and calling me, but I haven't replied to her yet. My mom is conscious now, but the doctor said she's still disoriented, doesn't remember much due to overdose of diabetic meds. She'll have to stay at the hospital for a few more days. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. This is not about eating the food you prepared. This is about your wife stealing the food from your mom. 2 years and your wife should know that mom gets food and her meds at the same time. What was her plan? Just not feed mom breakfast this morning. I was hungry so I ate your breakfast, shame for you. I almost wonder if this was intentional, no food and a double dose of meds, and then we don't have to put up with mom anymore. But then she got cold feet and called the hospital. Either way, this is a serious breach of trust. Being hungry doesn't excuse stealing your mom's breakfast. Not the idiot, but this is a very strange situation. Firstly, Webster packing your mom's meds will make life a million times easier for you. The chemist will do it for a very small fee, look into it. Secondly, how does your wife feel about your mom living with you, especially with a baby coming? Is this living arrangement something you guys touch base about regularly or semi-regularly? It's concerning that this happened, and I just wonder if there's some other motive underlying your wife's behavior. Not the idiot for being mad. If your wife is extra hungry, she can have a bowl of cereal or cook something extra herself, rather than selfishly eating the food your mother needs to remain medically stable. Sounds like your wife is playing up the "I am pregnant and need to eat so much more" card rather early. Sigh. Nip that in the bud, or talk to her and cook extra for her going forward, but make it clear that selfish behavior has to stop. My stepmom entered my life when I was 8. I had lost my mom 4 months before. She and my dad met at a grief group. She lost her mom and dad had lost his wife, my mom. They got married 5 months in, and she threw herself into mothering me and having more kids with my dad. It always hurt her that I didn't want another mom. That I wasn't open to having that relationship with her or letting her be that to me. I always kept her in the step-parent who comes into an older kid's life place. She wasn't quite parent, but she was family, and I saw her as that because she brought my dad back to himself. Our relationship has always been complicated because of this. She never gave up the hope one day she would hear me call her mom. And I never opened up to that idea. I was never looking for that. Which meant she always felt like she was in competition with my mom for something she was never going to be able to win in. So when I had my kids, she was hurt to be Grandma Jean and hurt that I told stories about my mom to my kids, and every year on her birthday we write letters to Grandma telling her about stuff. It's something I did as a kid, suggested by my paternal grandparents, and I continued the tradition with my kids. It feels like a nice way to keep someone's memory alive actively, while also not going overboard and getting trapped by the grief. It also makes it something the kids can actively do. My stepmom never knew about the letters, found out about it on my mom's birthday this year and she confronted me about it. She told me she thought becoming a mom would make me more drawn to her, would make me more open to the idea that I have another mom, that mom is more than just giving birth. I told her it made me feel more connected to my mom. That I was always clear the role of mom was never open to anyone else, and she can't fill a position that isn't available. I told her I cared about her, but she needed to understand that as much as I appreciate her loving me and my dad and for being great to me, she was never going to be mom. It broke her heart and she raged at me for dismissing her as a mother and for refusing to let her be what she wants to be. I told her she is a mother. She has 4 children who are hers. She's just not my mother. She seems really broken about it. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot and a stepmother over here. Sounds to me like your stepmother was so obsessed with the idea of being your mother that she forgot to build an actual relationship with you. The role of the stepmom is never to replace mom or be the mom, even if like in your situation mom is no longer around. It's to be a partner to dad and a hopefully positive influence and loving person in the stepkid's life. How that turns out is completely up to what you, the stepmom, with the help of dad, foster in your relationship with the kids. Not the idiot. You're not obligated to bend over to make this easier for her. You're allowed to keep your real mother as close to your heart as you want, and there's also no obligation to accept your stepmother as your mother. Honestly, if she actually cared about your well-being more than her ego, like a mother would, she wouldn't still be trying to force a relationship that is clearly not going to happen. Not the idiot, but she is expecting you to bend to her will of wanting to be your mom and your grandkids' real grandma, which is wrong. You are an adult. And she cannot expect you to completely replace your own mother. You are beyond kind to her about this, and she is not willing to give an inch and had the audacity to confront you about something so special to you and your kids that has nothing to do with her. She's only thinking of herself on this and not how you might feel on this. It seems like it's her way or no way, which is never how an adult should act. I'm sorry you're going through this. My mom died when I was 12. My dad married Sarah when I was 15. To me she was always my dad's wife. Not my parent. My step-parent if you want to use the title. But the woman my dad is married to always fitted best for me. I think my age played a big part in that. She was never a female role model for me. She's never someone I went to for maternal advice. Now I'm getting married. I asked my dad to walk me down the aisle. My fiancé is also getting walked down the aisle by his dad. My dad's wife thought about this and felt since my fiancé's dad never remarried and doesn't have a significant other, she should be included in the walk to show I have 2 parents and not just one like my fiancé. Therein lies the problem. To me I do only have 1 parent. She never filled any kind of significant role in my life. I appreciate her as the woman who makes my dad happy, but I don't feel like she was much of an influential person in my life. And I don't love her. So the idea of having her be represented as my second parent feels wrong. I told her I didn't feel comfortable with it, and she told me it was wrong after 10 years of knowing her. She left it alone after that. But then learned that I took a patch out of my mom's wedding dress to add to mine, and she told me I was refusing to represent all my parents and that was wrong. I told her yet again I did not feel comfortable with it. She said I was an idiot. Dad told her she was overreacting. My sisters are hearing crap about it too. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, I lost my mom at 25, so older than you, but otherwise, my dad remarried and I 100% relate to your feelings about the new wife. You described exactly how I feel. I'm not hostile or angry toward her, and I really appreciate that she makes my dad happy, and I'm glad he has her, but otherwise she represents the loss of the person I wish were in her place, and that will never change for me. I also had a minor spat with my dad about involving this person in my wedding, not walking down the aisle, but similar kind of thing. Anyway, I 100% get where you're coming from and I think you can't bend on this one. It will make you uncomfortable on your wedding day and that's not worth it. First of all, her idea that she should be included so as to intentionally draw attention to the fact that your fiancé only has 1 living parent is incredibly gross and inappropriate. But setting that aside, you get to choose whether you see her in a parental role. She doesn't get to demand to be presented as a replacement mother for the sake of her own ego. I'm glad that your dad isn't caving to her tantrum. I'd just tell him and your siblings that you're sorry she's behaving this way, but you hope they'll understand your wishes and why you're not giving in to her tantrum. Even if you saw her as a mother figure, she wouldn't have to walk you down the aisle. The mother of the bride doesn't usually walk the bride down the aisle or have any traditional role in the wedding at all. Unless it's a Jewish wedding and then I think it's mother and father that walk you, but I might be wrong. Plus if you're in an old church, sometimes the aisle isn't wide enough to comfortably fit 3 people walking together. And if you have her on one arm and your dad on the other, there are no arms left to hold the bouquet. I divorced my wife shortly after our 11-year-old daughter passed away suddenly. My marriage fell apart, and we couldn't stay and keep hurting ourselves the way we did. I'm not bitter about life, nor am I scared of death anymore. In fact, I'm a survivor. I survived my worst nightmare, and that is losing a child. I do my best to be the best dad for my son. He's 15, and I share custody of him with his mom and her husband James. I do have personal issues with James because of his unreasonable expectations for my son. He explicitly made it clear that, as long as my son lives under his roof, then he needs to follow the rules, which is fine, but the problem is James claims my son is being rebellious and disrespecting rules and evading punishments. His latest rant was that my son was hiding stuff in his room and being shady. Who on earth talks like that about their stepkid? As a step-parent myself, I treat my stepkids as my own, and if they were some neighborhood kids. I found out days ago that James removed the lock my son bought after his stepbrothers kept taking his stuff. They broke his drone camera and eliminating any privacy. When I went to speak to James, he said my son is hiding stuff, though my son said he wants privacy and for his stepbrothers to stop taking his stuff. James argued that transparency is important in his house and closed doors mean problems, besides that I'm teaching my son to be antisocial instead of encouraging him to bond with his stepbrothers through sharing. Also said my son's being a bad influence on his stepbrother since now they want locks too. I got mad and in the heat of moment called him paranoid for removing the lock. He asked me to leave, but I told he had a set of time to reinstall the lock or I'm going to get my son another lock and put it there myself. He laughed, saying he'd love to see me try and do that in his own damn house. He threatened to call the cops for trespassing, but I reminded him that's my son's house as well. He asked if I thought my minor son legally owned the house, then told me to leave again. The issue hasn't been resolved yet, and my ex-wife got told me off for threatening her husband and trying to dictate what goes on in his house. I had a fight with her and called her a terrible mother for letting him treat her blood and flesh this way. She said I don't get to talk to her like that because she never agreed on removing the lock, but can't do anything about it, basically saying she won't piss her husband off, which is typical. But this issue involves me as well, and I refuse to see my son treated like that by his stepfamily. Not the idiot by a long shot. Your son is 15 and deserves privacy, especially if people are taking his things. I'd try and see if you could get more custody. Your son is old enough to decide who he wants to spend time with, and when he turns 16 and gets a license, he'll really be able to choose. In my opinion, if this is a huge deal to your son and is very upset, you could make it your hell to die on. I just don't know now. Think a judge could make his stepdad put the lock back. Can your son keep more of his stuff at your place? You're going about this the wrong way. I understand that you're angry and your anger is completely justifiable, but there is no way that you storming over there and trying to force a new lock onto your kid's door in his stepfather's house isn't going to end with you being arrested. Protect the interests of your son by being strategic and taking your wife back to court to petition for primary custody. Maybe then she will pull her finger out of her arse and start looking out for the well-being of her son. The new husband sounds like an absolute idiot, and my heart goes out to you, your ex-wife and your son. I'm so sorry for your loss. Not the idiot. Is there a way you can let your son store things at yours, where he has privacy? This is not your fault in the slightest, but how far are you willing to take this to help your kid? You could ask James out for a drink so you can talk man to man or whatever. Try to get to the root of why your son having a lock bothers him so much. Maybe you can come to some sort of compromise. James might not deserve it, but you wouldn't be doing it for him. My husband's car needed to be repaired, and since I work from home, he asked to borrow mine while his was being fixed. I told him that was fine so long as he did not pair his phone with my car. I reminded him that last time he paired his phone with my car, it disconnected my phone, the app that I use for my remote start, and that any time we were in the car together, it would pair his phone and not mine. It was extremely aggravating, and I ended up having to call tech support to get his phone removed because it somehow made itself the primary user for my car. His car went into the shop on Friday, so he used it to go back and forth to work Saturday, Sunday, and we were going to pick it up this morning. I hadn't driven my car at all this weekend since he had to work. The day we went to go pick up his car, and as soon as I started it his phone immediately paired with the Bluetooth. When I asked why he paired his phone with my car, he said it was because he wanted to listen to his Spotify. I got upset and told him that the only thing that I asked him to do was not pair his phone with my car. I said that he was only using it for 2 days, and he works less than 5 miles from the house, so he could have just listened to the regular radio. He says that it's fine and I can just call and have them reset the Bluetooth if we can't get his phone unpaired. I told him that it wasn't fine, and that last time I had to do this, it was extremely annoying and took over an hour on the phone. Then I told him that the next time he needs to have his car repaired, he can rent a car as he was not allowed to take mine again. Am I the idiot for not letting him use my car anymore? Others are picking up on that this is probably more than just an issue about a phone. I'll take a stab at the implied issues. It's not about the phone pairing. It's about the fact that he doesn't respect that the car is yours, that you as his wife are still your own person and as such, can own property and dictate the terms of its use. Instead he sees you, and all you own, as his to do with as he pleases. He doesn't respect you or your belongings. He locks you out of your car's interface, perhaps he locks you out of other accounts, or is testing the waters to see how you'll react when he locks you out of others. Not the idiot. I don't think you are being an idiot. It was a very simple and basic request that should have been accommodated. However, I do think there's other things at play though if this is what sent you over the edge. And you should probably work on identifying and fixing that. I generally find if I am being angry over something so basic and petty as this toward my spouse, that there is a larger concern needing addressed by the two of us. Not the idiot. To all the people saying there is something more, of course there is. It's the basic lack of respect and the willingness to lie. If I ask you not to do one thing and you agree to those terms and then do whatever the hell you want anyway, then how can I ever trust your word? It's not that hard to not pair your phone for 2 days and keep your word along with the peace in your household. Simply listen to the radio or put on some headphones or earbuds and listen to your Spotify on the headphones. So no, wife should not allow these antics because if she lets him her way with this, she's teaching him she will put up with being lied to.